It was like everything I had been wanting was presenting itself to me. Sure, it's okay. Even though she's breaking inside, I want to see that as much as you want to know the answer to that question. When you're around brave people, you feel braver. Oh my gosh, you can sing! I want to roll like one of those regulars on Heartland.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Heart in Motion podcast. I'm so excited to be chatting with Kate Drummond today. Kate stars as Amy Hamilton in Crossroad Springs, which is now airing on Great American Family and Pure Flix and coming to the Super Channel in Canada. So, thank you so much, Kate, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Before we dive into Crossroads Springs, I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about your journey getting into acting and what drew you to storytelling in the first place.
Whoa, well, I think I was a performer right out of the womb. Like, I think as soon as I was old enough to have a thought, I was a storyteller. I was always putting on plays as a little girl. I would go to the neighbors and they'd have to pay me a penny and I would put on a show on their porch. And, I was a very creative, sensitive child. My stuffed animals were my friends. They all had to be tucked in. I sang the national anthem to them before I went to bed. Like it was just, I was such a creative kid and I moved around a lot. So I went to several different schools before I went to university. And so when you're always the new kid, you also become, sort of a chameleon in that sort of social setting as well. And so you don't ever really feel like you fit in, but you always fit in with your own imagination, right?
Yeah.
So, funny enough, though, that my parents did not put me into the arts when I was a kid. They put me into sports. And so I really excelled in sports and I was an athlete. I played competitive basketball and badminton, and I was a varsity athlete for my university. And I loved sports. I loved everything about it. But there was just a part of me that just felt so dormant inside. And that was me as a storyteller. And I was able to sort of scratch that itch when I was a school teacher because you can turn anything into a story and you can perform anything for these kids to keep them engaged. But for me personally, there was just this expression in me that I felt was really quieted. And so I took my first acting class when I was 30, and it was called Adults for Film and Television, or Adults for Cinema and Television. And I was the oldest one in the room and had no idea what I was doing, but something felt right enough that I just kept doing it. So I would teach my students during the day, and I would go to class at night and learn and take acting classes with various instructors. And then I started doing some theater in Ottawa. And then I started doing a couple of videos here and there, in terms like industrial videos for the government. And it was so cute because I would get an audition and I would sneak out at lunchtime. And I would tell my students because they knew I was acting, I was starting to act. And I'd say, and they'd be like, Miss D, good luck, good luck. And I'm like, thanks, boys and girls. And I'm teaching the little ones, and they're 8 at this point, I think. And I'd get back from a terrible audition, like forgetting my lines. What am I doing? I just should stick to teaching. I love it so much. What am I even doing? And I would come back, and the students would be like, Miss D, did you win? Did you win? I'm like, boys and girls, I was so nervous. I got sick in my stomach. I forgot my lines. I felt sweaty. And then I turned it all into like teaching experiences with them. And then they'd draw me pictures and tell me how amazing I was and how much they loved me. So they were really like my students were like my cheerleaders when I first started. And then, over the course of the 5 years before I left teaching, I left at 35 for a trial. Um, and I was teaching, kids. We were talking about Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, and I was trying to sort of give these kids the courage to think outside the box and think outside of what they know. And one of the kids asked me what my dream was, and I said, "Oh, well, besides teaching you, my dream is to be an actress." And she said, "Well, then why aren't you doing it?" And so I was 12 years into teaching at that point. I was looking towards getting my administration, so principal, vice principal, principal, and I don't know, that just really landed on me. And so I took a year off and I sold everything and rented out my house and loaded up my big old dog in my truck. And I moved to Toronto and I did not know anyone. And I showed up at 35 and said, "Here I am." Um, and then every time I went to go back to teaching, I would book something that was significant enough to keep me there. And then I realized that this was the path I was being shown, and it wasn't going to be easy. Um, but it definitely, I was being led. I just felt like it. Every time I had a hard decision to make, the decision was made for me. So that's sort of the transition. Like I went from like misfit kid to athlete. I was studying kinesiology. I wanted to go into med school, and then that sort of, I got spooked during a cardiology procedure, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I want to teach because I've always coached and I used to coach Special Olympics. And it just led me to teaching, and teaching led me to art and using drama with my kids. And then I realized that I needed it too. So it became this like really beautiful outlet. And it's funny because someone said to me, they said, you're still teaching. It's just that your classroom got a lot bigger.
Mhm,
And I loved that because my students still follow me and
mhm.
I get messages from them. And, Miss D, I'm having a baby. Miss D, I'm married. Miss D, can you come to our wedding? And it's the happiest, it's the happiest thing for me. It's something I think I'm probably most proud of is the relationship I had with my students, and that I was able to lead by example
Mhm.
and stay connected with a lot of them.
That's a pretty amazing story. I'm an educator myself.
Oh,
So
okay.
I know how hard it has to be to go, okay, I'm going to leave this, which is so precious to me, and that impact, but following your heart and taking that risk. That's such an amazing story to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, you get it then, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
I always say I've been cursed with two passions because, back to school happens and I start having teacher dreams and I think, oh no, I don't have bulletin boards to prepare and but wait, maybe I should. So I always stay like I'm employed by the local school board. And so I sign up as a substitute teacher, but I haven't been able to supply teach because I've been busy working.
Yeah.
But I have every intention of, getting back into the classroom on, when I have, especially with Crossroad Springs or this other
Yeah.
series I'm
Yeah.
starting, that if there's a break, I'd love to get in there and spend some time with the kids.
Well, and good for you for still being connected to the school district and doing the school board thing. I mean, that has a huge impact on the community. So good for you on that one.
Thanks.
So many fans also know you from Heartland, where
Right.
you played Paula Westfield over three different seasons. Looking back, how did that role shape your career and your connection to stories rooted in family and community?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, you ask really good questions. It was wow. It was a really challenging time when I first booked that role. And for risk of saying too much, I'll say it anyway. My first dog, Jackson, had recently passed, and we're talking within 2 months, a month and a half. And Jackson was my first rescue, my big galump of a person in my life, and was with me through career changes and city moves. And, I cried into his fur so many nights of wondering what I was doing. And when I lost him, it really leveled me. I had a really, really difficult time with it. And I know that some of the viewers will relate to that grief of losing a pet. It's just something you don't understand until you've been through it. And and so I had left Toronto, and I was out west, where Heartland is shooting when I booked the role. And I was so grief stricken and so excited to book this role on Heartland because I had the books in my classroom. Like I had the whole set in my grade 4 classroom. And so the fact that I was now going to be this guest star on Heartland for me was just like this big step up. It felt like a step up for me. But I was so trapped inside in my heart that when I first went, my first day on set, I could not breathe. I could not speak. I couldn't remember my lines. I was embarrassed. I remember calling my coach back in Toronto saying, I'm such a bad actress. I don't think they want me here. I think I need to quit. And he said, You don't. You need to serve the story. And it was such a, like, that was 10 years ago. I mean, it was such a pivotal moment for me because I then realized that, first of all, no one knew. I didn't know the cast or anyone well enough to have said, Hey, listen, I am just on the other side of losing my best friend. And so if I'm a little shaky, this is why, which is what I would do now.
Yeah.
But I was just so excited to be there and I didn't want anyone to not like me. So I was trying to pretend I wasn't super sad. And so my acting was really struggling. And Chris was directing, and I remember he pulled me aside and he gave me this real amazing pep talk about breath and just being okay and just letting it go, and just how he's been in the same shoes where he's been really sort of felt like he's been sort of stuck. And I felt seen. And I went home that night and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. I thought, I can't go back. They're not going to want me back. I showed up the next day. Everyone was so lovely. I said, I'm so sorry for yesterday. But and then all of a sudden, I think because I revealed I felt like I had revealed my true, like I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I've got this figured out. I was like, I'm so sorry. That was a train wreck. I promised to not be a train wreck today. And people were like, oh, and then I felt like it was good. Like it just felt like family. And it was so interesting because I very, very quickly into that experience started wanting that for myself. And it's always been, I want to roll like one of those regulars on Heartland where I get to be in the family and I get to tell these stories, these legacy stories that I get to grow old with people, with an audience, instead of, doing a couple episodes here or there. And so every time I got called back, I was so excited, and they're so amazing. Like, Amber's amazing, Michelle's amazing, and they're just so welcoming when you get there. And although I played a not very nice person, everyone was just they're always just open armed and so lovely and really set the tone and set the bar high for what I want to have in a series and how I want to behave as one of the leads of a series, and making everyone feel welcome and part of it, So it's I learned so much about that whole experience.
So I imagine that's part of the answer to what I'd like to ask next. But what first then excited you about joining Crossroad Springs and playing Aunt Amy Hamilton?
Oh, I was thrilled as soon as I knew, first of all, it was on a ranch. I was like, okay. Like I'm a massive horse lover. I'm an animal lover. I do, like that's no secret to anyone who knows me. And I've always said, I want to live on a ranch. I want to live on a ranch, or I want to have land, and I want to have lots of rescue animals, and I want, and I have been manifesting this role for 10 years. And when I got the script, it came out of nowhere. Like it was an offer and it said, we'd love Kate to play this role. And I thought, how is this happening? And I'm like, let me get this straight, because it was called Cowboy Church originally. And I was like, I don't really understand. And then I started reading and I saw this character, this complicated, multi-layered, strong matriarch of a character, but she was written like she was 72 or 71. And I was like, I can't play 71. I'm getting up there, but I can't play 71. And they said, just ignore the age. We're gonna age her down so that we can grow old with her. And as soon as I heard that, it was like everything I had been wanting was presenting itself to me.
Yeah.
And then I loved the values that were being celebrated. I loved the family dynamics. I loved that I could relate to a lot of the family dynamics and that it felt like stories that I want to be part of telling. And I love the fact that, going back to being a former teacher, I love the fact that this is a show that my students will watch with their kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me was so exciting. It felt like, and I said this in another interview, I said this script and this role felt like my favorite sweatshirt.
So
Like
cool.
it just fit.
Mm. So, how would you describe Aunt Amy to those that have seen the show, but also to those that haven't?
So I would describe Aunt Amy as the matriarch slash cool auntie
Yeah.
of James and Janet. Um, Loving baby sister to Willis, nurturer, caretaker. Um, she is always concerned about the welfare of the animals and the welfare of the barn and the farm and sorry, the ranch. And um, she is the glue of the family. She gets people connecting and talking about difficult things. She is the heart, I think, a bit. She's the Not that she's the only one with heart. Because that's so furthest from the truth. She is the one with the most, I think, who wears her heart on her sleeve. Amy is fiercely loyal to her family, is not afraid to stand up for what's right, um, and is very sensitive and hides her vulnerability from others in order to make it better for them. And I think that's what's a really interesting, relatable thing about women in general, is that I feel like I know in my own life I will put the feelings of others often ahead of myself.
Yeah.
And I will hide what I might be going through personally because I don't want my parents to worry and I don't want my friends to worry. And so you put on that sort of brave smile, and I could relate to Aunt Amy in her, sure, it's okay, even though she's breaking inside. And for me as an actor, that's a beautiful place to play.
Yeah.
It really is, because it's so truthful. And I think we're all breaking a little inside, and for whatever reason. And it's just really an honor to be that woman who I feel like people can relate to.
Yeah, I agree watching it and just watching it back the last couple of days. sh- She's right now in this series almost like that glue that's,
Yeah.
bringing this person in and this person in and kind of just being that stability.
Yeah.
But again, we know that there's so much. I mean, you just see all the things going on in Amy's mind, and it's just fascinating to watch. Aunt Amy's faith is really her backbone. It gives her
Mhm.
courage to make tough decisions. How did you approach weaving that into her character?
I don't know that there was an approach. I think it just naturally happened. I'm a very faith-filled person myself. I've taken a lot of risks in my life. I've been through a lot of changes. They've all required faith. I have, for the last 2.5 years, I've been nurturing a sick dog who has gone through cancer treatments, and that requires an element of faith. I think that is something that will play in every single role I ever play from now until the end of time, whether I'm playing a villain or I'm playing Aunt Amy. Faith is just my backbone. It's the faith that there is something much bigger than us guiding us and protecting us. And so it wasn't really an approach. It's not like I had to really work hard at that. Um, but it was so nice to have a role that gave me permission to
Yeah.
bring that part of me out into the open, you
Yeah.
know?
That's amazing. You've shared that you lived on a ranch for a few months.
Mhm.
What did you already know about ranch life or this world of living in a ranch? And what did you have to research or rediscover to play Amy? Because it's right now, it's like the ranch is I mean, the
Yeah.
family is the story, but the ranch is the story right now.
Yeah, all the legalities. I mean, all the things that come in episodes to come. There's a bunch of legalities. There's a bunch of sort of land development ideas and terminology that I was, I felt like I was in first year university business class
Yeah.
where, my professor was said to me, Kate, you're a varsity athlete, so I'm going to give you a pass on this course so long as you don't take another business class because it's just not your thing. And some things just like I'm not an uneducated person. I have 2 degrees. But there are certain things that don't work in this brain. And one of them are like legalities and interest and fluctuations and all of that kind of thing. If that makes me sound stupid, then
No?
so be it. However, so there was a lot of research about that kind of thing. Um, a lot of the other stuff was a sensitivity I had towards ranchers that I discovered from witnessing it firsthand, especially female ranchers. And the ranch that I was on, the head of the ranch was a woman, and it was so fascinating to see her, you know, be a mom and a rancher and on horseback and then fixing fences and stuff like that. And I tried to interject myself in as many places as I could because I love being outside. I love gardening. I love getting my hands dirty. I've always been that kid. I had an older brother. I always hung out with, the boys in my neighborhood. And so I was like, what fence can I fix? And how can I help? And I was just like so city girl gone farm, gone ranch life. And they were so kind and let me experience some of these things, but there were some hardships on that ranch that were heartbreaking. And nature is heartbreaking. It can be
Yeah.
very vicious. And for a sensitive person who's an animal lover, that was really difficult to wrap my heart around. But it again, when you go through these experiences, they change just you and how you view the world. And so then walking into the shoes of Aunt Amy, I have this sensitivity of the ranch hands and what they're doing and how hard they work and how difficult ranching gets as you get older, for Willis. That fear of what if there is no one else.
Yeah.
And because I saw a real life family going through similar conversations. And so I really was blessed to have that experience. And it taught me a lot.
We see that urgency in episode 1 from Amy when she makes the phone call to her nephew James. She's emotionally rattled, still has it together, but emotionally rattled. She just needs his voice in the room, is basically what she says. What's fueling her plea at that moment?
Um, it's the ranch and her brother's well-being.
Yeah.
It's the I'm seeing people around me burn out and I can't fix it. And that helplessness is, she's got to be at a very, very deep state of helplessness if she's calling and asking for help. Because I feel like Amy doesn't often ask for help because she doesn't want to put that on people. And she's the one who helps. The helper often doesn't ask for help, right? And so, um, knowing that Willis is hurt and we've been doing, the chores are piling up and we've lost our foreman and it's just now it's starting to spin out of control. And my brother, Amy's brother in this, he is headstrong and he would never admit that he's losing his grip on things as well.
Yeah.
And that's so heartbreaking, right? So, the plea to have James come home was, listen, like I need another voice in the room that is an objective voice. And so I mean, I think that was a really big ask for Amy.
Yeah. And I especially says she knows, the commitment that he's made to his church and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a sense of desperation at that point. There's a powerful scene at the dinner table, not even like overly. I mean, it was just a soft moment, but very powerful as a viewer. When Amy is sitting there at the dinner table with James and Janet, and there's a prayer going on, and you see Amy's eyes just kind of looking at both of them and just kind of taking that moment in. What's going through her mind in that moment?
She's so happy they're home. She's so proud. Um, she feels comfort, pride, for all intents and purposes. I mean, she helped raise them.
Yeah,
So they've, just having the family back together again for that moment just feels like an exhale.
yeah. And then in episode 2, we have another dinner table moment, vastly different this time around. And Willis is around the table and
Hmm.
sharing a bit of his frustration, and he's pretty vocal about it. I remember watching it, and I felt just that increase of frustration. And again, like you've shared, Amy is just kind of taking it all in, and she's listening. But at some point, that that I've got to do something kind of takes in, and Amy steps in boldly. What's behind her courage there?
Um, to stand up to Willis, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all have our boundary, right? We all have boundaries that will accept a certain amount of treatment or witness a certain amount of treatment before we stand up for what's right. And I don't think Amy tunes Willis up often. Like, I don't think that is the dynamic, but she's also not going to let him further isolate James.
Yeah.
And, it's there's hurt, there's, I'm sure, unexpressed grief. I mean, you lose someone on a ranch and you fill in very quickly. Everyone finds the new roles and I mean, seeing it firsthand, you don't have time to feel your feelings because you're always working.
Yeah.
You're always going. There's always something. And so I think what happens, I think the tendency is that it builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, and then someone says something and then lightning hits and now we've had some things expressed and now we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But those moments will be so short-lived because something will be needed to be done. So it's just such a what I love about these scenes and what I love about this show is that we don't have to sit in this drama and the heaviness of a scene. We don't have to extend it and sensationalize it. It can be what it is, and then we move on
Yeah.
because stuff has to get done. Animals have to be fed, chores have to be done. XYZ has to be done. And that's what's so lovely about playing a character in this profession, that you can't get stuck. You get your outburst and it leads you into your next scene. There was a couple of scenes I think that got cut, which I really loved. And one of them was after the outburst, was one after an outburst with Willis. Amy is really hurt. And you can just see by the end of I forget exactly where it falls in the series, but there was a moment of, you could just see that Amy was going to bed that night and she would probably be crying. And the next scene that got cut was her feeding the chickens and talking to the chickens. Like, it's a new day, hey girls, hey ladies, we made you a really nice fence. You guys are nice and safe. How about paying it forward a little bit, huh? You got eggs for me? Like, what I loved about that scene was that it showed that a new day is always a new day.
For sure.
And I really believe that that's part of her sort of way of thinking, is that there's always tomorrow. And she even says that in the first episode. I think, tomorrow, there's always a new day
Yeah.
tomorrow. Um, to face things and to make amends or whatever. So, yeah, I'm just thinking about all these experiences.
The first couple of episodes we've talked about really focus a lot on the ranch. We hear James kind of confide in Maggie about, what else might be going on in Aunt Amy's world. Beyond the ranch, what do you see as Aunt Amy's priorities for her family, her faith, or even herself?
Oh, that is just a whole conversation. Um, I- Listen, I've had this conversation so many times with Marco, our director, and the creators, like I want to see that as much as you want to know the answer to that question. I want to know, was it always Amy's desire to stay on the ranch? Has she had her heart broken? Is there She's such a loving, generous person. It doesn't make sense to me that she's closed off from commitment to somebody. And I'm wondering what it was. And has she really dealt with the loss of Willis's wife, Marianne? She was probably like a sister to her. Has she dealt with that? She helped raise James and Janet and sort of fell into the role of taking care of the ranch, which I know she loves. But again, kind of like me in my life, does she have two passions?
Mhm.
Is there something unexpressed in her that we will see she has been putting on the shelf for the sake of her family? And I mean, I think that is such a relatable theme. And don't get me wrong, I love that Amy is unwed. I love that she's this strong woman taking charge, taking business, and doesn't feel like she has to, you know, there's nothing wrong with her for being on her own and being a caretaker of others. I think that's such a noble place that she's existing in. But as a woman, I know her faith is her backbone, and I think she believes that she's being guided to exactly where she needs to be in this moment. And who knows what will present itself down the road. I
So
can only hope.
cool. And again, yeah, with what we don't know about Amy, there's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
We need a lot more Crossroad Springs, right?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Episode two, you were presented with a great opportunity when you found out you were going to be singing alongside Jonathan Stoddard, which was amazing to hear and such a sweet moment. What was
Yeah.
your reaction the first time that you read that was going to be happening?
Oh my gosh. I think I sort of started laughing when it says Aunt Amy and Jonathan. I mean, I have the scripts behind me, and it says and it was a bursts into song or something like that. And I had one of these. No, no. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I get to sing. Oh my gosh, I have to sing. It was like a weird, I love singing. I love singing, but I grew up and that one person when you tried to sing out loud once told you sounded terrible and then you never sang again in public. It was kind of one of those things and I was really insecure as a kid, so I that shut me down really quickly. And but I love singing. I love it. And it taps into a whole other vulnerable part of me that I wasn't expecting. Um, so I was really excited. And then so Jonathan and we got to choose the songs. And so we would meet. So Jonathan is the coolest. He's like a brother to me. We are so tight. And it was instantaneous. When we met each other, it was like we've known each other for 40 years. It was just we just see the world the same way. And and we're both quirky as anything. Like he's super, super dorky, even though he pretends to sometimes to be cool. He's dorky. That's the intel. He's spilling the
We won't
tea.
tell.
Jonathan's a dork, and I love him for it. No, but so he said, okay, come, we've got to practice and figure this out. So I'm thinking like I'm gonna sing like a kindergarten teacher because, there are 7 days in a week. There's my kindergarten calendar songs. And I show up and he's got his guitar and he's belting out these tunes and he sounds like Eddie Vedder. And all of a sudden I was shrinking down into the chair and he's like, no, 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 it's good, it's good. And so he's singing this glorious voice, grovelly, like voice. And I was singing like a kindergarten teacher. And but he gave me so much confidence. And he never made fun of me at all. In fact, he was quite the opposite. He was like, "You sound so great, Kate. Oh my gosh." And we had a lot of fun practicing. So then when the scene happened, it's so interesting seeing the scene because, you know, when you're around brave people, you feel braver. And when you're around safe people, you feel braver. And Jonathan is a very safe person for me. And so when we sang, um, I don't know, something just happened and I just felt like I didn't have to hold back. And then in the scene, I was supposed to keep singing, but I felt this like wave of emotion come through me. And it was like a mix of Kate and Aunt Amy at the same time, which I think is such a cool, powerful moment as an actor when you kind of you blend and you don't know who's who. But I just felt so safe. And I was so happy to be there with him as Kate with Jonathan in the scene, but also Amy with James in the barn, like it. And so at one point I remember like I stopped because my voice is all crackling and like I couldn't continue singing and then I tried to. And then, a lot of the stuff with Jonathan is really not it's not really rehearsed, like going in for the hug and stuff like that. It's not scripted. It's just we try to just be present with one another and be brave with our hearts. And so this singing, yeah, I'm very I kind of love it. So yeah.
So, what do you feel when it's all done? You've practiced, the scene happens. What was that feeling after you guys shot that moment?
Well, he looked at me and he said, "What was that?" Oh my gosh, you can sing. He says, "Here you were, like singing like a kindergarten teacher when we were practicing." And he says, "And that just came out of you." And so he was so complimentary and I was just giddy. I was
Love
just
it.
like, when you do something that you've always wanted to do and you just do it and you get over your nerves and it just feels awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, it's
You
super
guys have
fun.
shot 6 episodes now. We know you're
Yep.
getting back to film more. Any other great behind the scene moment that comes to mind that you can share without giving anything away?
Oh, that I can share without giving anything
You
away.
can give it away, but I don't want to be the one to break the rules.
No, I don't want to be the one to break it. I don't want to get in trouble. Like between action and cut, we are just in it. We're just in it together and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we call cut, we turn we turn into little kids like that are all unruly. It's so funny. And especially Jonathan and I. Like I think Jonathan and Emily and I got in trouble quite a few times. And by trouble I mean like guys, come on. We're like,
Yeah.
sorry, sorry. We're singing Beauty and the Beast show tunes or, like the community hall scene in episode 2 is very, tense.
Oh, yeah.
And in between, Jonathan and I are doing like the dirty dancing. I've had the time of my life because it's like the perfect thing. So it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
we're trying to like do the, and other people are doing it and like someone's teaching me how to line dance and like it's a hoot. It's such a hoot.
I love
And
it.
then it's action and it's like, okay, we're in. But I mean, it's to be respectful of other people in their process. That doesn't work with everyone. And, sometimes you can't do that because people are really heavily into their scene. And granted, a lot of scenes are, you know, it's a challenge to stay in for so long as an actor. So, but yeah, we'll be outside sticking our head in gnome cutouts and stuff like that, which I'll show you. I'll share it with
Love it.
you. And
Love it.
but yeah, just I mean, I think the behind the scenes is more just the friendship, the friendship that's developing really organically between all of us and the crew as well. Like the crew is just family. I cannot wait to see everyone.
That's amazing. Yeah, it just needs to keep going.
I know.
Do you remember your first day on set?
Yes.
What was that like?
I was first day and first scene, and I didn't know that.
Set
So
the bar.
the schedule had changed, and I showed up, and I thought everyone, like, I thought all the crew knew each other. I didn't realize, I don't know why it slipped my mind that I was the first scene being shot. And it was me on the porch having a phone call. And so I'm not actually acting with anyone. I'm talking on the phone, and the person responding is um, our script supervisor. So it's not even like you're talking to another actor. So my first scene of this entire show was me on the phone talking not to another actor, but trying to pretend that I was. And I thought, oh well, they hate me because I feel like a terrible actor. And it went so fast. I mean, I think that's what all actors think. I think every actor has a bit of this imposter syndrome where it's like, oh, maybe they probably wish they cast someone else, you know? And I think that's just a natural feeling, especially when you're in such an expressive, vulnerable art form, when everyone's like ready to judge. So you have to really be tough. Anyways, I'm not tough. So I remember the scene happened so fast, and Marco was like, "Okay, we got it." I was like, "Okay, great." I haven't really acted with anyone, and I don't know what I'm doing, but we hadn't really even figured out Aunt Amy. I hadn't really figured out, I'm learning more and more about her as I get to play her. And but that first scene, phone call, okay,
Got it.
got it.
That's so funny. That's so
Yeah.
funny. Do you have a favorite scene so far?
Ooh, there's a lot. Um, yeah, so there's a scene, but I don't know if it's I don't know if it there's another singing scene with Aunt Amy and James that is really emotional. And yeah, and I don't just think it's my one of my favorite scenes because it's dramatic or whatever. It's just because it felt so grounded and connected to Jonathan. Um, it just sat with me. It sat in my heart.
Yeah.
It really impacted me. Um, I have I love the scene where Aunt Amy tells Daniel Newman, see that fence? You stay on the other side of it. I love that scene. Um and it's funny because in the shooting of the first 6 episodes, we would all talk about our scenes. So we would, and especially if we were staying in the same hotel, we would shoot all day and then meet for a few hours at night and go through all our scenes and how do we make sure that this is landing? How do we make sure that, and not to like rehearse it, but just to kind of walk through the intention of the scene and how we can make it the most relatable and authentic as possible. And were there any concerns? Like, you don't want to have these long discussions about what makes sense or what doesn't make sense, or I wouldn't say that, or you wouldn't say that, on the day, because it just eats up the time. But, we would meet at night and talk about our scenes. And I was always fighting for Aunt Amy to have a backbone. I didn't want to play Aunt Amy as this one-dimensional homemaker because what she does is very noble. Being a homemaker, being a caretaker on the ranch is so noble. I will defend her job with all of me. but there
Hmm.
is so much more to her.
Yeah.
And just because she's kind and just because she's has a big heart doesn't mean she doesn't also have that ferocity to stand up for what's right and to protect her family. So, that was the really nice part of collaborating with this team, is that it was always sort of, how can we make her sound smarter, stronger, um, and that she's in the know, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really cool though, because there was so much collaboration in the storytelling. So it was great. People would bring ideas to the table, and I never thought of that. And that's actually really good. And if you're going to change that line, then I'm going to respond differently with this. And how does that feel? And it was just so, yeah, it didn't feel like it was, the storytelling was fueled by any ego. It just felt like it was fueled by a desire to serve the bigger story of the Hamiltons and their life and legacy there.
So, what has been the most rewarding part of being on this show?
Um, there are so many rewards.
You can share more than one. We can break the rules.
Yeah. I think, well, I mean, one of the biggest rewards is that, I get to be part of this story that has longevity. Um, and I get to take this journey of this woman and share it with an audience. And it seems like people are really relating to
Hmm.
her and to the story altogether, not just my character, but to everyone's character. So that's super rewarding. I love seeing the feedback. I love when people say, "Oh, I see myself in this character," or I understand that family dynamic. That's really rewarding. Um, all the people I've met, all the friends, the now like forever friends, found family that I've met on set. That's been a huge reward. Um, just yeah, just knowing, and especially as an actor, when you never know where your next gig is coming from, it's so nice to know that I've got this consistency.
Yeah.
There's this
Yeah.
stability in the work,
Yeah.
because I don't love the feeling of acting from a place of, oh, I hope this isn't my last day ever working as an actor. So, I mean, yeah, the rewards are so, the friends I've made, yeah,
So many good things.
so many good things.
What do you hope that the audience will take away from watching Crossroad Springs?
I really hope that everyone who watches Crossroad Springs feels like they're part of the family. And in that, I mean, they feel like they feel seen
Yeah.
by our characters, by our relationships with each other, by our hardships, by our successes, by our challenges, by our questions of faith, by our fears. I, my hope is that everyone who watches can relate and feels like we are being super respectful of family dynamic. And because it's tough. I mean, we could portray this whole story in a completely different way and take out all the conflict, or make it all about one thing, and that would be fine, but it wouldn't be relatable to you or me. And so that's my hope.
Yeah.
And my hope that the people watching will love these characters and want to cheer them on and stay with them and build a relationship with them. And I want the audience to connect with me personally over socials. I love engaging with my fans. I love conversations. Like, I hope the audience just feels like this show is the warmest hug and the biggest welcome sign that says, "Come on, everyone belongs here on the ranch," and I that's what I want.
It's been so much fun on this side of it to watch all of your interactions with those of us that are watching. It really does feels like a much bigger family than just the Hamiltons. So we're
Yeah.
really enjoying how much you guys are contributing out there. I always like to ask this question because in
Okay.
between the episodes, is
Yeah.
there something that we could go back and watch of yours, a project that comes to mind that you're like, go watch this thing that Kate Drummond did?
Oh gosh, I've done so many things. And they're all genres. I've done video games and, I've done movies that are not faith-based. And I think, yeah, I mean, I'm so proud of so many of my projects.
You can, again, we get to make up the rules. You can say more than one.
Okay, so I'm proud of a couple projects in particular, and one is a movie that I wrote and directed. And I'm not in it, but I worked with a colleague of mine. We co-wrote and co-directed a film called Go Fish.
I'm so glad you brought this one up because I was checking all the stuff out. Go ahead.
So Go Fish is a movie of a young woman who has recently lost her mother, and her father loses everything. He can't get over the passing of his wife, and they start to lose, basically everything, all their worldly possessions. And it's her searching for the making of peace with the passing of her mom. And so she spends the whole movie trying to get a unicorn pedal boat back that her father has sold to her arch nemesis. So it's got this sort of like funny, quirky, indie vibe feeling of a movie. I'm just so darn proud of it because, it is very family friendly. We had a grief center actually in Ontario incorporate it into their repertoire to share with teens and young adults who had gone through loss of a parent because they said that we actually through this movie showed what it is. It's not, grief looks different to everybody. And so that was a really proud moment for us to have Go Fish reach people in a way for such a tiny little film. I mean, it was a huge part of my life for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So there's that one and then the other thing I'm really proud of is the movie that I won my Canadian Screen Award for. And it's called several names. It's called Secrets in a Small Town. It's called Nowhere to Be Found. It's called Nowhere. It's got three titles. I don't know which one goes by what, but it's on all the streaming services. It was the first time I'd ever played a lead in a movie. And I was offered the part as I was getting ready to quit acting. I had lost my dog Jackson that I'd spoken about earlier in this interview. And this was about 8 months later. And I just was not having a good time at life. And so I started to look at going back to my school board in Ottawa and teaching again. And over the weekend was researching the school board and, what do I have to do to get reinstated? And then on the Sunday, I got an offer to play the role of this woman in this movie. And I was so thrown off because I'd never received an offer before, let alone an offer to be a number one on a call sheet that I'd never played a lead before. And it was about a mother who was trying to find her daughter who goes missing after a high school hazing incident. And it's based on a true story. Um, and it's so interesting because I had all this stuff locked in me, all of this feeling of grief and despair from losing Jackson that I thought, well, maybe this is the outlet for it. And so it became the most special film for me as a person because, you know, I brought Jackson's toys and put them in my little girl's room in the movie so that it would mean something to me. And everyone was very respectful. And what I did that I did differently than when that first episode of Heartland, when I was so couldn't breathe because I was afraid I would cry. I told everyone. this is baby, this is Jackson's toy, and everyone was protect baby, where's baby? And so it was a grueling shoot. It was not easy. But it was my first lead and the first time I was recognized for my acting, and I just was so darn proud of it. So it's your lifetime thriller movie of the week kind of thing. But for me, I'm just really proud of it because of all the behind the scenes stuff and the people that made it. And I made some incredible friends. And I think anytime I get a chance to just be a storyteller and be a truthful storyteller, for me, that is just where my pride is. It doesn't have to be red carpets and, it doesn't have to be that for me to feel it has value. And
That's so cool.
yeah, so those are my two projects that I think. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing something big and someone's going to watch this and say, "What about this?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like I was on the show Winona Earp, which changed my life, and I
Yeah.
love like my Earpers are my family, and it's where I started the word famdom because they're my family, and I've gone to conventions all over the world with them, and I love the Earp family with all my being. It's so funny. And I guess I didn't say the show because it just feels like that's just normal. Like that's
Yeah.
just my family.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's lots of stuff, but yeah.
So we can see the movie with three titles on streaming. How can we see is it Go Fish? Is that what you said it was? How can we
Yeah,
see
Go
that?
Fish, I think is on Prime.
Okay.
It's on Apple TV. Like I think it's on the streaming services as
Okay.
well. So if you've got a smart TV and you just search Go Fish. Now there are two movies that have the name Go Fish. One of them is not a movie that is like, it's not my movie.
It's not like, did you say family friendly?
It's not family
Okay.
friendly because I remember looking up Go Fish and this visual came up and I was like, that's not my movie. Who changed our poster? And then I realized it was a totally different movie.
Uh,
That's not the movie. That's not the movie. The movie is very sweet. And the tagline for it is when you think you've hit rock bottom, look deeper.
love it. That's so cool.
So
I
yeah,
love it.
which I love.
Do you have any projects coming up that we can get excited about, even if you can't share them right now?
I do. And I actually texted someone earlier to see if I was allowed to say anything. And I didn't get a response. So I'm going to err on the side of don't say something. But I have another series that I'm starting to shoot next week in Halifax. And I'm really excited about it. A lot of comedy. And I have a Christmas movie coming out. It's called Uphill to Christmas. That'll be coming out this year, and then in the spring, I have a theatrical release movie coming out of the sort of thriller horror genre. But that hasn't been announced yet either. I know it's just so I want to be able to say I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this, but I can't because I will get in so much trouble.
No, it's
Um,
okay. We just know to be looking. We know there's stuff.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will always share. Like I am an oversharer on Instagram. And if you like dogs, you'll get so much dog content from Zelda. And if you like donkeys and horses, I've unofficially adopted a rescue donkey and a rescue horse that live on a farm near me. And this woman is 80 who owns the farm. And so I have a green light to come anytime I want. So I am there all the time, hanging out with Zach and Pretty Girl. And so there's lots of donkey content as well.
Did you
That's all.
post, was it last night that you post, or yesterday, that your Toronto Blue Jays get up?
Yeah, that was my TIFF outfit.
I'm not gonna like, I'm a little bit of a Yankees fan, but
Oh,
we did
oh.
lose, so I will take it right now.
I'm glad you didn't open with that because if you had opened with that, I would be like, I'm sorry. What? Can't I
Waiting.
think connection's bad.
Sometimes people wear the stuff, and I think like, a lot of people will wear a Yankees hat, and I'm like, but are you really a fan? Most of the time it's like for looks, but I
Yeah.
I got the vibe that you're actually a fan, and I was like, I'm not going to lead with that.
I love sports.
Yeah.
Like I'm such a weird, I'm a weirdo. I have
I
so
love
many
sports too. I love
Yeah, like
sports, love being outside. I get it.
I like the sports. I like watching hockey and I like watching football and yeah, you know.
Where can everybody follow you? You mentioned your Instagram account. How can we follow you to stay up to date on all of your stuff, your projects and the donkeys and the Blue Jays?
Okay, so all things projects, donkeys, rescue dogs, my amazing cancer survivor dog Zelda from Mexico, horses, and all the things I'm doing. I'm mostly active on Instagram, and that's at Kate_Drummond, and it's the one with the blue check mark. So make sure you go to that one. And other than that, I have an actor page on Facebook. That's not as busy. Like I don't spend as much time on that. And that's kind of it. I'm not on the old Twitter or anything like that anymore. My dog is, but she's been busy and hasn't been posting very much. So yeah, mostly Instagram. I love Instagram for, sharing little stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, it has been so much fun talking to you, hearing, all about your journey. Fascinating. Loved hearing that. And just celebrating what Crossroad Springs is and hopefully what's to come. It's been a delight. I want to remind everybody that you can watch Crossroad Springs on Great American Family, on PureFlix, on Super Channel. We're loving it. So thank you so much, Kate, for being here.
thank you for talking to me. It's been so lovely.
All
Really
right.
lovely.
Bye bye.
Bye.